to the second of our series for youth mental health awareness, the impact of COVID-19. Welcome once again. This is the second of our mental health series, the second with the youth. We've had another series with the Uganda Diaspora Nurses and Midwives Association. Otherwise, in terms of this particular one for the youth, auspiciously organized by Lauren, this is our second outing. In the first one, we didn't even think that we would be under lockdown up to this long. I think Lauren could remind me when we had the first one. I'm thinking
it was like October the 13th,
October, yes.
Or something like that, yeah.
So we thought, oh, by Christmas, this will all be done and we'll be back to happy life. But alas, I think we went back to square one or even further than that, maybe square zero or negative. We had Christmas under lockdown and we're having Valentine's under lockdown. So what a way to do this. My role here, ladies and gentlemen, is simply to host as TGM Radio UK. So I will introduce the speakers today. First and foremost, we'll have the moderator. That's Natasha Mutebi. Sorry, I'm a bit slow because my fly isn't coming up. What is it? There we go. Obviously, I know Natasha's name. Natasha Mutebi is Miss Uganda UK 2015 to 2016. She's a mental health advocate. We have Jackson Rich, who is a mental health and well-being advisor. We have Sarah Boudreau, who is a mental health psychotherapist. We have Dr. Dave Bailey, who works with East London Health Trust and specifically with Butabika Mental Health Hospital link. Butabika Hospital is in Uganda. We also have Bridget Katunji, Miss Uganda 2016 to 2017. She's a nurse and also a mental health advocate. I think Natasha's not here yet. And we obviously have the organizer of this series, Lauren Gabo, a mental health advocate. So we're very happy to see you all again. And I'll now hand it over to Natasha.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Valentine's. I think it's so beautiful that we're having an event on a day full of so much love and compassion. And we're talking about our first love, which should be ourselves and our own well-being. Thank you, Lauren, for inviting me and for hosting something like this. And as long as we have the resources, that we can do it. Sometimes we don't feel like we have enough resources, but really it's just about the intention that you put out there. So a little bit about me. Prior to start, I'm really blessed being able to start the entire program, and I hope that I can stay throughout and ensure that I get all of the tips and the useful information that everyone's sharing. So as you heard, I was the Miss Uganda UK 2015 into 16. My whole experience in the pageant was great, but there was a lot of mental well-being that I learned myself because of my stutter, which many of you have heard already. Sorry about all that, trying to repeat it. But I had a lot of anxiety myself. I had a lot of things that I had to deal with and learn methods and long-term, short-term, future methods that helped me with my own anxiety. And then also, I am a master's graduate. I did a master's in global and public health and policy. And then I actually currently work at Parliament. I'm a researcher and I'll be moving into the social science research, but right now I'm working in stats. So that's a little bit about me. It's my birthday tomorrow as well, so I'll be 25 tomorrow. Just so you can hear about me and hear a bit about what I do. So I'm going to be kind of introducing it. I'm not really having my own set. And I wanted us to really think about mental well-being right now. We know that with the pandemic, mental health has become a crisis pretty much, and we need to be very careful of the secondary pandemic, and this is a mental ill health, because so many people are in a place in their life now where in lockdown, many of them aren't with family and friends, and so we're having to still work, still prove to be productive, but there's no help coming in. And as humans, we are social beings. So I wanted to kind of bring in some tips on how we can deal with the isolation, because though it sounds very negative, there are some things that we can all do that could turn this into a positive for our own personal development. And I've been doing a lot of these in my own workshops. So I have an upcoming social enterprise. It's still quite new, but last year in the lockdown, I actually launched it, and most of them were on Zoom. And I know Lauren was there. I don't know who else was on here that was there, but they came along, and we really looked at personal development concepts and themes like emotional intelligence, resilience, emotional regulation, healing. How do you heal from childhood trauma? We know that there are a lot of things that are triggering us now because we are alone, in memories and emotions. And if you've not dealt with a lot of trauma that may have been placed in your life in school or with home and family, now's the time that they actually are being triggered for many people. But how do we turn this time into a place where we can actually try to reflect and use tools that can help us? So what I've tried to do is summarize it into 3 ways. Like I said, long-term things, short-term things, and things for the future. So we'll call it, it's the P word, I stutter. Sorry guys. A preventative measure. So that's what I wanted to call it, sorry. So to start off with short-term, if you are someone who just one day you wake up and you just had enough of lockdown, you really want to be with your friends, what I see as short-term things are self-care in the moment. So if you are someone who knows about maybe how to meditate, or you've learned how to meditate, guided meditations are the first thing that I try to do when I'm going through like a really hard time. I'm in that moment. Journaling is really, really helpful with pouring your thoughts out on paper, seeing how you feel, and not letting that emotion fester, because I'm not sure if you guys have done research, but most of our emotions actually can contribute, to long-term problems, maybe like with your health or with your like thinking mindset. So when you journal, it's really helpful to get rid of those emotional demands and that have been placed on your body. When it comes to long-term, this goes back to what I was saying with the courses that I do through the social enterprise, Manifesting Legacy, doing courses online that maybe help you understand what does it mean to be mentally resilient. And they'll draw into concepts that actually really teach you how to handle your emotions, how to bounce back, how to think things in a different mindset, in like a different light, because your thoughts really do become things, and your thoughts are very powerful. And I think that, sorry, my phone just went funny. We're living in a time now where we're really seeing the importance of mental well-being. And to be well is fully holistic. So your physical well-being, mental well-being, and your emotional well-being. I want to talk about things in the long term. So diet actually has a massive impact on our mental well-being. There was a study that showed that I think it was 80% of our sorry guys, serotonin is made in the gut, and that's one of the happy hormones that we have in our brain. So when you hug someone, or when you sing a song, and when you want to dance, that's that hormone. So if we know that that is coming from our food, it's very helpful to look at a diet that will help you with such proteins that can help to bring that. Things that I mentioned prior can also help with the long term. So things like exercising, having to meditate. It's something that you develop as a practice, but I personally have found it so helpful, especially with my stutter. And when I guide a meditation, most of my friends think it's crazy, but I don't stutter when I'm guiding it. I'm like, okay, breathe, look, think of this, think of that. And I think it's a way that our brain realizes now is calm time. and now is relaxation time, sorry. So for me, that's what I wanted to really break things down to, how the conversation may be able to go. And when you're listening, think of it in these lenses. Of course, they're not all mutually exclusive. Some things that can help you in the long term with your mental well-being, that can also be used in the short term. But that kind of helps me frame things and put them down. One other thing that I forgot to say is when you're planning on your week, I have loads of things at home. I've got whiteboards, I've got so many journals, and I've got a like timetable. And these are things that I learned in therapy. So when I was studying about CBT, which is like how you channel your emotions and how you think forward to help you with your emotions, things like planning, it really helps your body get into a routine. So those are the 3 areas that I wanted to kind of dissect when we're looking at our mental well-being. And I wanted to kind of end on a note that the prior stats that we used about 1 in 4 people having like a mental illness, we cannot imagine how much that has risen now with the lockdown. And so I'm just really passionate about this. If you're interested in the workshops that I do, or just speaking to me in general about how I've navigated mental health, having a stutter, doing the pageant and the masters, I'm happy to talk about that. And yeah, I think I'm introducing Dr. Bailey next. And I'm really excited to hear what everyone has to say, because information is so important when it's a lived experience, when it's from our own stories. I think stories have so much power, and things can be in research and we can have facts, but it's our emotion and it's the way that we connect with each other that makes us, which makes us really make a change. So thank you for bearing with my stutter and bearing with me, and I'd love to introduce Dr. Bailey.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Thank you very much for inviting me here today, and thank you very much, Natasha, for your introducing me. It was a real privilege to follow you, because I think you said more or less everything that I would like to say over the next few minutes. I suppose for me, I am an expert by professional background. I'm a consultant psychiatrist. I have read books, I've got qualifications. But I guess for some time I've been aware of there's a real gap in the way that we deliver services, and that gap is lived experience. There's a real wisdom and knowledge that comes from navigating adversity and difficult experiences in life. And you know, I think there's something really core to recovery from mental health problems in using that knowledge to support other people. You know, the learning that we've had for ourselves, not keeping it to ourselves, but sharing it with others. And yeah, absolutely, you've been a real inspiration in describing that to us. And that is the core of what I'm going to talk about, which is peer support work. So I'll try and share some slides if I can. I am a consultant psychiatrist working in East London. I work on the mental health wards in Newham Centre for Mental Health and in the community at Stratford. And I've also been involved in working alongside mental health services and with service users in Uganda over the past 15 years or so, and particularly in developing peer support work. So just touching on some of the things that Natasha started to talk about, which is really the impact of COVID on mental health. There are many different ways that COVID is impacting on the mental health of our communities at the moment, from the direct impact of the virus itself, but also the impact of lockdown and the loss of community and loneliness. In my patients, I see a lot of patients with severe mental health problems, and they've seen a real deterioration in their mental state. There's been a real issue with loss. People have lost friends, they've lost their roles, their function, their communities, and that's led to sadness and depression, a real sense of threat about what the future holds, about what people are going to be doing in their life, about their finances, their future, which has a massive impact on anxiety. There's been interpersonal stress with rise in domestic violence and relationship breakdown and abuse in relationships, and real fear, sometimes exacerbated by misinformation and conspiracy as well, which has really impacted on our community and the ability of services themselves to support people. We've been less able to do a lot of the things that we would normally do to support people, and there's been a real reliance on medication and less holistic care, which we need to think about. So Natasha was touching on a tsunami of mental health problems that is emerging. In terms of mental disorder itself, we know that at least a third of people are developing worsening mental health problems. You know, one of the biggest things is economic threat, having younger children, having to support families. And it's said that the population strategy should protect the people from the economic consequences of COVID, support the parents of young people, think about students and the gap in their you know, education and their community, and we should be focusing additional resources on those with severe mental health problems, people who've been hospitalized with COVID, who are likely to have PTSD and anxiety symptoms, and frontline workers as well who've been exposed to real difficulties. So in terms of the impact on the population of their mental health, we know that throughout COVID, there's been impacts on hopelessness, anxiety, an increase in suicidal thoughts. And throughout the pandemic, there's been an increasing number of people who feel like they are not coping. And I think all of us can experience this in ourselves, in our families, and in our communities as well, that people are really struggling. It's just really wearing people down. So I want to bring this now to peer support, which is this idea of mutual support which can be provided by people with similar experiences. And I guess in the context of mental health, this is people who've had mental health challenges, using that wisdom and that learning to support other people. I'd like to say this is different from the support that I can offer as a doctor, and there's evidence that it can be helpful because people can relate to each other better. There can be a change in the power dynamics. There's a mutual sharing of information and hope and kind of role modeling of getting through difficulties. I work in East London, but we've had a link with mental health services in Uganda over the past 15, 20 years, and we've collaborated on projects around child and adolescent health, safety on the wards, psychological therapies, but crucially as well, peer support work. And over the past 10 years, we've taken service users, so people with mental health challenges, from East London to Uganda, and worked with service users in Uganda, setting up and collaborating on developing services there to work alongside mental health services. So Heart Sounds set up an internet cafe. We've had film clubs, recovery training, and crucially, this led to the development of peer support work, working alongside Butobika Hospital. We talk about brain drain, the idea that trained health professionals from low-income settings like East Africa, like Uganda, leaving Uganda to go and work in other countries overseas. And we called our project the Brain Gain Project because it was really recognizing the rich knowledge that existed already within services among people with lived mental health problems. So we called the training and the recruitment of service users as peer support workers the Brain Gain Projects, and that's been running now for almost 10 years. In the first project, we worked with service users to develop a model of peer support working, and they worked alongside services to support people who were discharged from Butobika Hospital, which is the main mental health hospital in Kampala. The second project then took that learning to 7 of the 13 regions and the regional referral hospitals to try and bring that way of working into the regions. And then more recently, we've developed a training manual and a recovery manual, which has now been ratified by the Ministry of Health. And so hopefully much more embedded in the way that mental health services can be delivered in Uganda. Heart Sounds has evolved into Peer Nation, which is a collaboration of service users around Uganda. And there are studies, there's the Upside study, and we're hoping to bring peer support work into the West Nile resettlement region to try and develop mental health services there. So the training itself covers a number of different things, but the key part of it, I mean, we structure the training, but the learning is from peer to peer. You know, we are there facilitating the training, but the learning and the shared information And the realization that mental health problems has given people wisdom and knowledge, and the will to support each other is really the key ingredient through the training. So over the 8 years, we've trained up a large number of peer support workers. We've seen there are real benefits to the people who receive that support, to the mental health system, but also to the peer support workers themselves. And it's really become an exemplar in East Africa and in the wider world. And you're moving to supporting people with mental health problems to doing with people with mental health problems. And so we then brought it over to East London, or further developed it here. And where I work in Newham, we've now got a accredited peer support worker training. We've got 22 peer support workers across inpatient and community services on permanent contracts. They've got career progression and they're very flexible in their roles. During COVID, we had recruited a group of service users to train as peer support workers. So we went online, and you can see there, that's our graduation when we graduated 11 of our peer support workers who had an online training, and they've now been recruited and are working remotely. So throughout the time of COVID and lockdown. And our experience has been that, you know, it's a really powerful way for people to part of their recovery, and we would want it to be a part of people's recovery and care pathway. And so the value of peer support work, it's people with shared experiences supporting each other. There's a real knowledge and wisdom that can be gained from adversity and living through mental health problems. Helping others itself can be a really powerful therapeutic tool, in people's recovery. It's an alternative to the over-medicalization of normal human distress, particularly as we're seeing now in a time of COVID. And doing and learning together can be a real therapeutic ingredient in a political act to combat stigma, to combat loneliness and hopelessness. And it moves from thinking about mental health problems on an individual level to a community level. And what I've really learned in my working, particularly in Uganda, is that people do not see their individual recovery as enough, and that people want to use their recovery to support others and then advocate for better mental health. And it's been really inspirational for me to work alongside peer support workers in both East London and Uganda. And so I just really want to recognise, everything that the peer support workers and my colleagues, both there and here, have taught me in my own journey of how to work with people with mental health problems. So I think that's all I've got to say at the moment, but obviously I'm really excited to hear other people's contributions and to be part of any discussion later on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bailey. I think that is so empowering to see how most people as well that have actually recovered, I don't know if you can hear me, so hear me? Yeah. Yep. Most people that do actually recover, or they come through that journey of mental well-being, we love to share. I think it's really powerful in like seeing that, like, okay, this is what I've learned, and now I can train myself to use these tools and this methodology. And I think especially with lockdown, where we're not kind of interacting as much, peer support now is probably one of the most powerful forms of sharing and caring. So I think that I'm an example of that anyway, personally as well. Like, I love to learn about mindfulness, and the first thing that I did was share it with someone. Like, this has really helped me. So I completely agree with that, and thank you for all your work. If anyone has any questions, could you put it in the chat, and then I'll also read it out. So we'll give that about a minute, and then we'll go to the next speaker, if there are none. Is it Ivan? Do you have the program? Well, I have it as well, but I just wanted to know if there's any changes. No? Okay. So following now, we have our amazing advocate in the Uganda community, Jackson Rich, who is very passionate as well about health and well-being, and he's going to speak about it in regards to exercise and diet. So like we said, speaking of the themes of long-term, short-term, and the future, what we've just heard from Dr. Bailey is something that is in the here and now, and I think there's so much power speaking about now and the power of now and the power of being. And now we're going to have Jackson speaking about how your exercise and your diet can help with your health and well-being. So that's more trying to prevent poor outcomes and trying to keep up health and well-being in your life. So can I introduce Jackson now?
Hi guys, do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Hi.
Hi. thank you guys for having me here to talk about, for me, what called me is raising awareness for, for the youth. And I'm so passionate with helping the youth because most times we always end up in hospital when we would have sorted this stuff out when you're still youth and we didn't have anyone to talk to us. And so normally I love speaking to the youth and basically raising their consciousness, because when you raise your consciousness, most times you go above average. Most times I'm going to be all over the place. So the health will come in and the sports and exercise and everything, but still I'll be more on awareness. That's what will be coming in so much, and higher consciousness, and maybe even talking about the paradigm, because we end up in a system. A paradigm is just a system, habits that we end up, waking up in the morning and the day goes without knowing what's going on. A month going, a year, and sometimes you end up in hospital or 70 years. So back on mental health, mental illness it's not something that you see. Can you guys let me know if you can hear me? My network might not be very good, but can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, but the camera was gone for a little bit. But it's back now. You're good.
Okay. Because yours are good. I could see mine, but the thing with mental health, mental illness is it's something that people don't see because it happens within you. It happens within you. So most people don't understand about mental health. So most of all our mental health problems come from our inability to handle our own intelligence, our bodies. Can you guys, I think my network is playing up. But if you can hear me, I can continue. Oh, my network might have gone off. Ivan, I can see myself, but I can't see anyone. Natasha's gone off.
Jackson, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. So most of all our mental problems come from our inability to handle our own intelligence. When you look at this body, until we understand who we are and what is ours, so many people, we get caught up in not knowing who we are. And basically problems end up where we can't handle our emotions and thoughts and emotions. If we understand who you are and what is yours, I'm going to come to that, but let's talk about the pandemic has come. It's a problem that's there. But most times, if we don't work on ourselves, on our health, we end up making one problem, 10 problems. So the pandemic is there, COVID is there, but most times, because we can't handle our emotions and body, we create all these problems. But if you look at it, I'm going to talk about the body. So I always want, all human experiences happen within us. If you look at it, pain and pleasure happens within us. Joy and misery happens within us. Anxiety and ecstasy all happens within us. So all our human experience, we don't see it that way, but it all happens within us. So all the problems we have, we normally create them subconsciously. We don't know, but we create them by our thoughts and our inability to handle our body. Because if you can't handle your body, then you won't be able to handle the emotions and the thoughts, to get them away. So you have to first look at yourself as youth, because we're making youth awareness. Are you in a place to cause what you want? Or are you in a place where you're in a compulsive reaction? Because if you're not healthy with your body, you're going to be in a compulsive state. You won't be able to respond to the life, because when the world is there, it is going to throw so many things at you, which you're out of your control. Like a pandemic came, but that's out of your control. So the world is going to throw so many things, but how you're going to respond to them. Most people don't respond, they react because they can't handle their thoughts and emotions. So we end up reacting. So usually it's like when you have a car and it's a fast car, but if you can't drive, you're going to crash. But the problem is not with the car. It's normally you not being able to handle to handle the car. If you have a bike and you can't ride, you're going to crash. But the problem is not with the bike, normally it's with you. So when a pandemic comes like this, that's one problem. Let's not make it 10 other problems, then we end up in whatever situation we are in. Because when you can't handle yourself, your body, if you're not eating well, you're not healthy, you don't exercise, most times you're going to be lazy. You don't want to wake up. Like water, we all know we're supposed to drink water, but most people will go for fizzing. It's all because the way the brain works, it makes you do the opposite, just protect your identity. We have so many identities that we get. So people know that to be healthy, your body is 75% water. Drink water. That is one of the ingredients of a healthy body, drinking water. Eating fruits. You know, we have an intelligence that's on us, which I'm going to talk about. An intelligence that you give an apple, you give an orange, you give a carrot, and it makes a human being. If someone talked about that there's something that you give healthy food and it makes a human being, but there's an intelligence behind that you give a mango, you give healthy food, and it keeps you running, your physical energy. So that dimension is there. When you start raising your awareness, you start understanding that what's that dimension behind something that we give water, we give mango, we give banana, and it does all these miracles. When you raise your awareness and you're in the now, like someone mentioned about it, that being in the now. When you're in the now, your awareness is high because you're there. Most people, they're thinking about what happened or what hasn't happened. So most times we are in history or in the future. But when you raise your awareness, your consciousness, the consciousness is that person. You see this body. This body is not you, it's not me, it's just mine. This body is just the food I've eaten, the water, this is just mine. So I can't say that this is me. I'll give an example. I don't know if it will make sense. When you look at this water here, yeah? This water, if I told you that this is me, you would say that Jackson is mad. But when I drink this water and finish it, it becomes me. Because look, this was water there. It could have been you, or it could have been me. When I drink it and finish it, it becomes me. This apple here, I haven't eaten it. When I eat it, it becomes me. This orange, I eat it, it was there. Ivan could have eaten it to become Ivan. Ivan could have eaten this one, that one. So if you understand that your body is just material, that food and water and what that makes blood and bones, but it's just food. But there's an intelligence that we don't see that's within. This body is just a garage. Because when you look at it this way, I wanted to talk about how people can understand who they are. I'm going first to say that we are not, because we are not our jobs, we are not our names, we are not our cars, we are not our status. We get so much identified with my car. When they scratch it, you get so angry, like, oh, but it's just a metal. And if you understand that, you understand, okay, this is not you. It's just the things I've told you, water, all the food we've eaten. So if you put everything that's not, you can control our emotions and our energies. Because all we're doing is we get the thoughts, and the emotions come from the thoughts, then the energies that run us. People don't go in control. If you understand what's not you, like now we put the body aside. Your body, all your thoughts are things that you accumulated. Like the body is food you've accumulated from your childhood, from your baby. They've been giving you food, water, this and this. Some people take alcohol, but still the body is there. So that's not you. We put it aside. How we think, the thoughts, all these things we've just accumulated. Your psychological body, anything in your psychological body, you've just accumulated. They've told you things, your parents told you things, your siblings. So basically we've pulled, you've had all these things. Now they're in your psychological body, they're your thoughts now. So anything, your thoughts are not you. So if you put your body aside, put your thoughts aside, then without thoughts, you won't have the emotions. You won't be emotional. those things are there. You can watch them, you can put them aside. Then you can control, because you can control your thoughts, you can control your energies, and you know that this is not your body. So when you learn who you are, because the you is invisible. That is the invisible part of you that is just in a garage that the body is holding. So if we put some space between what we are and all these things, these material things that, that we are suffering. Some people are suffering like their past experiences, but your past experiences are not you. Things you did, you might be guilty, or sometimes you suffer guilt, depression comes from those things, but anything in the past is not you. They are just thoughts that you did in that body. That was your body. But the you, the invisible me, is a dimension that's always there. When you become this dimension and get out of the physical body, because the physical body is your ego, is the ego. The physical body is that part of you that wants things, wants those material things, wants money, wants this, and I have to be right, I have to be. When you get out of this physical body and become the observer, the person watching you, because this observer has been with you, was not born, has always been there. If you get into this dimension where you see your thoughts, you can see all these things, this part of you that is invisible. I'm going to share something where we can work on getting. It's in engineering. So when you get out of the physical body, because as I started saying, when I was starting my conversation, it was everything that happens within us. Our pain and pleasure happens within us. Joy and misery happens within us. Anxiety and whatever ecstasy, everything happens within us. So you move out of the physical body and go inside. So you can solve all your problems when you go within. Because when you're within, you can control your emotions, your thoughts. You take all the identities that we're struggling with. What we're struggling with is now people think that I'm a Muganda. It is not you. Your tribe is not you. Your status is not you. But we end up with all these identities. Being black, you could have been white, you could have been black. So even all that color, all those things, if we take all those identities that we've taken on, because they're the ones we are struggling, they're the ones we are suffering. We're ending up suffering our own intelligence. If you look at you, who is you is this observer, who is there. When you're born in a small body like this, then you give that body food and it becomes this. Maybe the 5-year-old you. The 5-year-old you is still in you. And the 5-year-old you didn't have all these identities, was not identified. Like when they were angry, the whole village would know because they express it. If they're happy, they'll light up everyone will be happy. They'll feel that happiness. So they didn't have all these things. So that part of you is still there in you, but it's in the physical, it's in the observer. The 5-year-old you who used to express themselves is still there in the observer, in the one watching, outside the physical body. Then the teenager in you is also still in you, the one who could get angry. So all that, then the me, who is the father, is also still in me, in this observer. So since you are born, you're there. There's this dimension that we have neglected. They never teach about it in school. It has nothing to do with our formal education. It has nothing to do with being smart. It has nothing to do with all the qualifications. This is just raising your awareness to know that, you know what, this has been there, but I didn't know about it. So it's a dimension that we have to go in, because with it only wants peace. The ego side of you is the one that wants money, wants this, and so when you put some space between all the things in the physical world, remember anything in the physical world has two sides on that. It has an opposite. Everything in the physical world has an opposite. When you say male, there's female. When you say up, there is down. When you say right, there is wrong. The east, west, good, bad, north, south. Everything in the physical world has a beginning and has an end, has an opposite. But this dimension, which is invisible, you can't see it because it's not within the 5 senses. Anything that most things that we have identified with are the things that we've seen, we've touched, we've felt, we've smelled. They are within our 5 senses. We human beings, if we go into this dimension, we go out of the physical and go to the invisible side of you. Because the invisible side of you is just happy, or just wants love, or just wants peace. It's not identified with this body, because the body is not, the body, when your life goes out of you, it's the body that they do what? They bury. This invisible part stays there because it's in everyone. When you raise your consciousness above the ordinary, because we're all born ordinary, so we do the ordinary things. You come, you go to school, after school you graduate, you get a job, you go into a relationship, and you pay your taxes, you buy a car, you become a good citizen. That is within the 5 senses. That is just surviving. But to get rid of all these illnesses, this mental health, when we join this dimension, which is invisible, which we all can, just raise its consciousness, just consciousness. When you raise your consciousness above average, above anything else, when your awareness is up, because now we're talking to the youth. Most people grow old and they get the consciousness when they're in mental hospital, maybe when they're about to die. That's when it comes that, oh, all these physical things, oh, I didn't need it, because we identified with them. All the things that we think they are us, they are not us. The you is someone who wants peace. When you go into this dimension, all you want is peace. And your vibrations are so high because you don't want things. All these things will come to you. You can get anything you want, because then you're in a manifestation where you manifest things. All these illnesses will go away if we all raise our consciousness, like awareness, to higher levels. Okay, now the problems are there. As I said, we all have things that we call problems. When you raise your awareness, when you're in the now, when you raise your awareness, you're always in the now, because all life happens in the now. Nothing happens. You can't do something yesterday. You can't do something tomorrow. Anything that we do happens in the now. But most people are not always in the now. You're here, but you're thinking about your car. You're at work. You're thinking about your wife. You're at home with your wife. You think about work. So that's why we end up with all these problems where we can't control our thoughts, our emotions. But when you raise our awareness, you go into a place where you see all these things, like, because you become your observer. Then, whereby this invisible part of you, you feel like you're the whole universe, because you are. It doesn't feel that way because we're in the physical world. When you get out of the physical world, where you've raised your awareness above the 5 senses. Because if you look at it, what animals do is what humans do. Animals wake up in the morning, they eat their food, they go and sleep, they reproduce, they sleep, eat, survive, reproduce until they die. Human beings also do the same. When you're in the physical world, you eat, sleep, go and work, that's surviving, then reproduce, then eat, sleep, like that until you die. So we do the same things that animals, like other creatures do. But for them, when nature put 2 lines for them, it put a bottom line and a top line. So for them, animals, that's why you never find them stressed. Trees don't get angry, but they all have a life. What happens is, for them, animals, when they're hungry, they have one problem. When they are full, all problems are solved. Human beings, when we are hungry, we have one problem. When we are full, 1,000 problems. Because nature didn't leave a line, for us to remain in the survival, in the 5 senses, we have to raise our awareness above the 5 senses. Because it gave us the gift of memory, where we can remember things that happened 100 years ago. We can remember things that happened yesterday. Instead of using that to help us on our advantage, we end up suffering that, because then we think about this, we use our identities, then we end up fighting. So we are suffering our own intelligence. So we have the memory. If we use it right, we could go anywhere. Then we have the imagination. animals stayed in that they don't have the imagination where we can imagine something and get it. So anything you can imagine, just think about it this way. When you go to sleep and you go into a dream state, and where does the bed go? The bed is there, but you're in a state where you can get whatever you want. You want a private jet, you get it. You want to go to Dubai, you get it. You want to become 3 years old, you get it. But that dream state is there. So if you go into the invisible world, you can start manifesting whatever you want. So I didn't want to go so much into exercise because since COVID started, everyone now knows you have to exercise, you have to do this, but we just don't do it because we are tied up in a paradigm. A paradigm, I'll give an example of a paradigm. It's like my hand. My hand, since you are born, I know that my hand has to make me do this, the food and this. But when they chop off my arms, I get other things to do. I start using other things. But before, I couldn't use them.
Sorry to interject. No, sorry. I just don't want to run over the schedule too much. Would you be able to summarize in 3 key points, kind of like ways for young people to interact with this higher being self, and just summarize it in maybe 3 bullet points, and then after that, I'm going to share the notes that I've made from your contribution.
Okay. All I want the youth to know that whatever they're doing, they can't do yesterday, they can't do tomorrow. So they have to be in the now, because everything happens in the now. So I just wanted that, and knowing maybe the paradigm is we get caught up in where you wake up in the morning, go to class, go to do this, but you're not thinking about it. But when you raise your consciousness, you start being in the now and you do them consciously. So it's just awareness, consciousness, and paradigm, and knowing who you are and what's yours. That's it. Thank you, guys. I'm sorry I went.
No, I get really passionate about these exact topics, and I've made some notes. So I think it's really good that with Dr. Bailey, we really looked at the impact in the physical, in what we can see. So right now we're seeing things like, like a raise in anxiety and a raise in domestic violence and things like that, and worry. But then you've now brought it back to the internal. So looking at, you said something that I speak about quite often. I say, will you react or are you going to respond? Because when you react, it's not so. When you react, it shows that your like emotional handling or your like emotional intelligence is not at the state where it needs to be because you're reacting. But when you're responding, you're really thinking about what will help me now, what will serve me now. And I think that was very important when you mentioned that. You also spoke about internal problems. So I think a lot of what you're saying that has manifested in our society now is actually what starts internal. And I speak about this very often as well. What internal dialogue do you have with yourself? If someone could hear how you speak to yourself, is it in a negative tone? Is it in a positive tone? Are you speaking very much about the past, which, brings a lot of depression? Or are you worried about the future when you speak to yourself? Is that like a lot of anxiety? And it comes back to what you said about the power of now. There's a book by, I can't say his name, Eckhart Tolle, called The Power of Now as well, and he really jumps into this paradigm of how our thoughts are always ahead or behind, and it's very rare that we just focus on being. And you also spoke about the identities. I wanted to mention that as well. We all have many identities, and there's a social theory on this called intersectionality, and it shows how, depending on all of these identities that have been like pre-programmed, or they are social constructs like race or your gender, how are you allowing that to impact you, but also how are you navigating through society like that? One other thing I want to talk about was, you mentioned the concept of self and thought, and that conflict with ego. And there's a concept called self-mastery that says if you want to master thyself and not be a slave onto the ego, the first step is self-awareness. After self-awareness and you raise your consciousness, you start to self-explore. What do you like? Who is the real you? What kind of person would you be if you didn't have all of these external pressures? And then after that is self-love. So you learn to love the true self, thyself. And then after that is self-mastery. So I wanted to bring that. You brought a lot of really good things, and that's why I'm trying to kind of summarize it so that those that are hearing it can really hear the conversation. And last thing, we are multi multi-dimensional beings. So that was really important to highlight. You know, there are different dimensions that oneself is moving through, and what we see right now is the physical. And I think your key point was for you to have exercise and actually be healthy. The first part is really understanding all of the different dimensions. Is that kind of what you were trying to get at? Just so I can emphasize it. Is that good? Is that a good summary? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I encourage everyone.
I beg your pardon, Natasha. Before you introduce the next speaker, Jackson shared with me a link where you can get to learn all of these things that he's explained, and that's by the Isha Foundation. It's called, it's www.innerengineering.com. www.innerengineering.com. If you're watching us through our Facebook feed, there's a ticker tape going around with that link, so you can go and get it there. Over to you, Natasha.
Can I mention one thing? Sorry. If that inner engineering, it's a course that's online, and it's free for people who are in NHS, people who are in care work, people who are in social work. So when you go on to inner engineering, just go to apply for the course, then go to the link where you can get it free of charge. NHS, care workers. So because of COVID, they are getting it free of charge. So you can get it free of charge on there.
Thank you. Natasha?
Thank you so much. Very, very helpful. So we've got some websites there. And we have a book that we mentioned and the concept of self-mastery. So that's a lot to take away. Our next speaker is, I think, Sarah Boudou. Have I said it correctly? I'm sure that surname is French, isn't it? I love it. Sarah is, oh, sorry, I spoke over you.
Okay, no, it's Boudreau. It's fine. You said it well. It's fine.
Thank you. She's going to be speaking to us on seeking psychotherapy and how we can really start to remove the stigma and the discrimination that was /is. There is some improvement that surrounds mental health, and how we can really navigate through the conversations and the solutions as young people. So welcome, Sarah. The floor is yours.
Hi. I'll just start by introducing myself then. So I am Sarah. I'm a positive psychotherapist and a well-being coach. My master's is in positive psychology and coaching psychology with the University of East London. I do work for a large mental health organization in England, and I also have my own practice, which is Boudreau Wellbeing. So one of the things that the organization that I work for has recently been doing is making sure that ethnic minorities are now sort of targeted more, and we're sort of bringing them into, you know, the mental health world, because it was an audience that was recently being missed, or people weren't sort of feeling like they could approach these organizations for mental health support. So that is something that is ongoing at the moment. Yes, I've heard a lot of people saying that it really helps when people who are dealing with people who suffer with mental health, that they've been through it themselves, and that they have that personal experience. It's like, for example, if somebody has post-traumatic stress disorder, then they go through that post-traumatic growth. So post-traumatic growth is an upcoming area of research that is it's fantastic, actually. I do recommend people have a little look into it, because PTSD is quite prevalent in our society. Let's just go on to, another thing that I've noticed over COVID recently, actually. So I know there's a stigma around mental health, but as everyone said, the pandemic has really brought mental health to the light, and I feel like there's less of a stigma now anyway, which is good, right? So I just wanted to say that companies, because we're all working from home, it's really interesting to see whether companies actually have mental health groups or well-being groups or workshops in place for their staff. And it's something I've been trying to look into because of the group coaching aspect that I do. But I think a lot of companies should be looking at having free well-being groups online via Zoom for their staff. So just something to think about. I do also want to say that there is a bit of a stigma with mental health, but also I think people it's like anxiety, for example. So I would say it's actually quite natural to have anxiety. It's healthy. It's actually something that tells us when something is wrong or something is important or pressing. It can be healthy. When it's not healthy is when it's accompanied by severe amounts of stress. And stress is really the killer, right? Stress is really the thing that creates the cortisol toxin in our brain, that really just breaks things down for us, stops us from functioning as well as we usually would. So really it's about how do we control stress, right? Or how do we have enough self-compassion and self-love to realize when we are stressed or we are experiencing burnout, and how we can actually try to help ourselves in realizing this. So I want to just move on quickly to around self-compassion. This is something that I strongly focus on. It is the main thing that I work with my clients across the board is this idea of self-compassion, and I break it down into three. So I break it down into the self, which everyone cares about, right? We all care about the self. I break it down into company or community. So self-compassion, company and community, something that we all thrive within. And then I break it into passion. So that could be passion towards the things we love, ourselves and others. So it's really important part of self-compassion to affirm yourself correctly. So we all get stuck when we think, oh no, what's wrong with me? Have I got mental health issues? Oh no, and we kind of suppress it. We might be embarrassed about it or whatever it is. But these negative, this negative self-critic that says, I am not good enough. Why am I like this? There's something wrong with me. Someone did this to me. Nothing I do ever works, or I never. These negative affirmations, you say these things into the world and these things are more likely to happen. It's like a spiral. You get this ball rolling. So self-compassion tries to focus on those things and starts to try and look at affirming yourself in a more positive way to create an upward spiral. So in doing this, in being aware and acknowledging our strengths, like I am okay, I can get help, I am strong, I am kind, I am okay, I can do this. By saying things like this to ourselves and catching ourselves, we can raise our frequency, we can raise our energy, we can raise our vibration. To do everything with positive intention, no matter what that is, it takes time to learn how to do that. Not everyone can do this straight away, but if you really just start thinking about it, if you do everything with positive intention, whether that's speaking to somebody or doing something, working, always know your intention, whether it is a bad one or a good one. So one of the main things around self-compassion, seeing as it's Valentine's Day, I'm strongly with the whole, it's wonderful to try and seek love from others and feel that we're receiving love from others, but really what's important about Valentine's Day is that we love here, okay? So if we build the love inside of ourselves, and by seeking therapy, we can do that. That's the start, right? So if we build the love within ourselves here, I guess you could say the heart chakra, not only is it sustainable, but we can emanate this sustainable love outwards to our fellow man, our fellow friends, and it's sustainable for everyone if everybody then learns how to build this self-compassion within themselves. We're not draining the energy and self-compassion from somebody else. We're also not being drained by giving out more than we can produce within ourselves, okay? It's about this sustainable love and love of self. So one of the things has helped me through lockdown the most, that I prescribe to everybody that I speak to, and it's an ancient practice. It is a sort of more Indian sort of like Hindu practice, but it's a mindfulness practice nonetheless. And we've had a lot of people talk about mindfulness here today and being in the now and being present. We've heard emotional regulation. It's a self-regulatory process that gives you self-discipline, emotional regulation, all of these things, and it's yoga. So yoga has helped me through the lockdown. I don't know what I would have done without it. Now, it's amazing for everybody of all ages, all ethnicities, just anyone really. It can be done by anyone at any level, as long as it is done for the purpose of mental health. Now, everybody, likes to think, oh gosh, how am I going to do the splits, or how am I going to get in this pose? It's not about that. It's not about your flexibility. It's really not about how toned you get. That's really just a byproduct of yoga for mental health, okay? Because in the self-discipline process of being able to continue to do this practice and get into these poses, it's all self-discipline. So yoga in itself is free, unless you go to a class, of course, but there are plenty of online YouTube videos for beginners that allow you to understand the concept of yoga. It is meditating and exercising at the same time. So yoga has benefits. So this is what I'm studying in my dissertation, by the way, is yoga for procrastination, which is also, yeah. So procrastination, right? It's a disorder within itself, but we don't see it as a disorder. But procrastination is actually when we want something so much that we struggle to get it, and there's a lot of negative kind of emotions around that. But that's another subject. So let's go through the benefits of yoga, because I suggest if you can't access mental health services because of the buildup, because of COVID, because NHS waiting lists are long, because whatever's going on, if you can't access mental health services at the moment, it's all very well that GPs are prescribing medications to people as a band-aid, but really, like somebody said before, I think it was Dave, we need to be looking at this holistically, okay? We need to be looking at this holistically. Tablets don't, these practices like yoga and mindfulness are ancient and scientific for a reason. They knew back then. We know now we should be using these things. So the benefits of yoga: it improves your cardiovascular system. It circulates your lymphatic fluids and releases toxins. It's good for your digestion. It's good for a sense of oneness. It's good for, basically embodiment. So a lot of us, when we have mental health issues, our minds are over there somewhere. And it doesn't feel like they're here. It's here with us. It's over there thinking about something else, as people have said today. Really what we want it to be is here, in line with our body, feeling a sense of embodiment. And yoga does that. It grounds us. It grounds us from the heart chakra here. And it's the third eye and the crown and everything. This is all spiritual. And then everything below the heart chakra is grounding. It's of the physical world. So it allows us to sort of like bring those two things together, and then it gives us emotional regulation of the heart chakra as well. Chakras are another interesting concept. So another thing then, again, that people have said is with traditional yoga, there's a vegetarian diet. I'm not saying that anybody has to do that, but the concept behind that is colorful foods. And we've mentioned foods today. So colorful foods, if you can't get hold of mental health services that you need, yoga, meditation, colorful foods, because colorful foods are full of antioxidants, which stop free radicals in your brain, which means that it's a way of stopping and curbing dementia and Alzheimer's and the breakdown of the brain. Now we know that the brain has a neuroplasticity now, and that we are actually capable of maintaining its plasticity throughout our entire lifetimes. It doesn't degenerate if we don't do things that cause it to degenerate as such, or unless we have some kind of genetic issue, perhaps. So yeah, the best thing for people who are suffering with mental health at the moment is, yes, please access people who are about coping mechanisms, mindfulness, yoga. Please access these people. Please find these people, because going to your GP is wonderful, but there are coping mechanisms you can use in the meantime, and these are coping mechanisms that you can use for the rest of your life. Now the idea is to not have to see a therapist for the rest of your life, but to become your own therapist, right? To become your own therapist and to get it from within yourself too. So coping mechanisms such as gratitude daily. I know we've probably all done that over COVID, right? We've had to think about the things that we're grateful for, because life is hard, COVID or not. Life is difficult. We all must learn to adapt. We all must learn to cope all the time and build that resilience, as I think Natasha mentioned before. self-compassion, gratitude, yoga, mindfulness practice. So yeah, I think I've covered everything that I could possibly say that. And yeah, I just really hope that everyone tries to access you know, some self-compassion today on this Valentine's Day. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you. That was like, that made me feel even like oh, like, you know, it was like nice to hear it, and hearing it from someone who's actively like doing the study of it, because I've had a lot of questions. I was actually on radio last month where somebody asked me, how do you talk about manifestation, yoga, mindfulness, and still, and being Black, and also still being prayerful and like being Christian and things like that. And I was like, it's so good for the mental well-being. Like when we're looking at it from the angle of like sustainable coping mechanisms, and that's exactly what you said. These are things, you know, that help us sustainably. And I just like how you worded it. Like it's these concepts that have been around for hundreds of years for a reason. They are sustainable. They are
thousands, 5,000 years.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, so long. It's a science in itself, and yeah, it's something we should all be doing, really.
Yeah.
Looking after our bodies and our minds.
Love that. And also, guys, the really important tip about food was really, really, really important as well, because I think I was reading up on that as well, how our brains neurogenesis is actually ongoing in our lives. Years ago, they thought that, you know, once you get to the stage of being an adult, that it stops, but it's not true. Mm-hmm. Nerves keep growing. Nerves can signal and learn how to re-signal and form new networks. So love that. I'll be reaching out to you because that's really
go for it. Yeah, that's fine.
So everyone, ask any questions in the chat just before the next speaker comes up if you do want to. I'm seeing some great feedback on the chat actually as well, just for something from Dr. Bailey or Dave. But now we have something that gets a bit more intimate. I know that Bridget, I met her years ago. She was the Miss Uganda UK after myself. So hopefully some of the concepts and that Sarah has spoken about and the tips and things like that, if she's been through them or if she's seeking them, I'm sure that she'll be speaking about that in her next contribution. I'm just going to see if she's online. Yeah, Bridget's online. Okay, awesome. Welcome. The floor is yours, my lovely.
Thank you, Natasha. Okay, I can be heard and I'm seen clearly, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, awesome. Let me just sort myself out. All right, well, first of all, I just want to thank you, Natasha, for facilitating this discussion. Thank you to Lauren and Moses for putting this online event on and for allowing me to contribute. I appreciate everyone else's contribution so far. I think mental health is always going to be a conversation that is necessary for us to engage in, and particularly in the time that we find ourselves in, dealing with a pandemic and experiencing unprecedented times, uncertain times, unpredictable times. It's really important that we find solutions and ways in which we can better support one another. I had planned to share from a certain angle, but as I was introduced as a former Miss Uganda UK 2016, and I'm also a pediatric nurse by profession, I just felt like I wanted to share from the heart and really offer myself and my insight and wisdom, drawing from all my experiences, also as someone who is currently dealing with depression. I knew this might happen.
It's okay, sis. We love you. Sorry, we love you. We love you.
Thank you, Tash. I'm going to ask for grace in case my voice gets a bit shaky, just because I am very emotional. But it was important for me to be a part of this, just because it's very easy to share from a place of having overcome or gone through something. But I think there's also power in being vulnerable to share when you are still going through. And just because, again, mental health is such a personal topic for me, because it is part of my living experience, in that I actually recently found out that I'm wired as a highly sensitive person. And so my experience of the world is quite unique, in that there's only about 50 to 20% of the population that have this kind of makeup biologically. And so the way I process, experience and engage with the world is quite different. And therefore my nervous system is very sensitive to stress. And so it's something I'm continuously having to address. And I think, again, everyone's experience of mental health will be different, and it's important that we can be candid and start to normalize the conversation and share what our experiences are, so that we can open our minds to the fact that just because it doesn't look maybe how we assume it to look, it doesn't mean that it can't be true for someone's experience. And I think I've been in Uganda during this pandemic, and so therefore I've had quite a unique experience of being away from home, but also being with family here, and then experiencing a compromise in my mental health during this time, and just the way I have been received by family, again, because this is something that I've experienced on many occasions. I'm used to being dismissed. I'm used to having conversations with people that are limited in their knowledge, especially coming from our culture. We're still working with a lot of stigma, still working to educate, and because I have taken it upon myself to create that space in my family and within my social circles, you're in the firing line a lot, because you have to deal with the ignorance, you have to deal with the lack of sensitivity, you have to open yourself up to, I guess, people's comments that sometimes can feel, and I'm just going to be really candid, because I think it's, again, important that we can also reflect upon ourselves and take personal responsibility. And in me sharing this, I'm hoping to just challenge us all, where we can take inventory on our language, our behaviors. And some people won't ever access therapy, and maybe you showing up a certain way can provide a safe space for someone to share and open up. We can't take those moments for granted. And so I've had people comment, on my weight. And again, because of the way my anxiety and depression impacts my body, my weight fluctuates a lot. And so in our culture, weight is a thing. Many of us will know that and agree. And so comments like that, I just wanted to really come from the heart and just make it really practical and bring it home and allow us to really just think about how we can become a better support system in ourselves, for ourselves and for the people around us. Just taking stock on how much empathy do we show others, even when we don't understand what they're going through. How are we making them feel safe to share? Also, how candid are we willing to be about our limited knowledge and where we need to grow that, and maybe how we don't know how to support someone, and being honest about that in our engagements, and not assuming we know what's best for people, the advice we need to give to people. I just really feel like I've been privileged to have a strong support system, and where I've, again, learned tools, and I've committed to practices to aid my health and to facilitate healing. There are days where I'm defeated. There are days where I genuinely can't get out of bed. There are days where I am overcome. And it's my support system that have held me and really grounded me and held me when I've had moments where it can get really dark and you can't always articulate that. And so just someone who is passionate about my people, someone who speaks to young people all the time and he has the privilege of hearing their grievances, how, you know, how they're impacted by the lack of safety in their family systems to be vulnerable, the lack of even just acknowledgement of the importance of our emotional well-being. There's a lot of work to be done, and I'm grateful for everyone's contribution. And again, I will never diminish the importance of having spaces like this where we can inspire one another, drop nuggets of wisdom, and just share experiences to build this bigger picture. And again, this was really difficult for me to share like this, but I'm really passionate about changing the narrative, and again, about fostering a new way of relating as humans, as people, you know. Yeah, and I really feel like that might just be all I have to offer right now, because I have a lot of notes planned, but sometimes the fog just hits you, and I just think that's all I have to offer. So thank you again for the opportunity to share.
Thank you for sharing.
Honestly, so go on, Sarah.
No, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Bridget. I think everyone here really appreciates what you've just said to us all and how you feel.
Thank you, Sarah.
And don't say if this is all I can offer, because you've offered more than we could even ask for. I think the power, and you said it, the strength of being vulnerable and honest and bringing back humanity to mental well-being. It's not just the stats or the outcomes, or like, it is the humanity of how all of us at one point or not have been at that stage where we can't get out of bed. I remember a stage in my life where I couldn't get out of bed and I had to put on certain songs and do certain prayers and meditation just to get out of bed. And I just now I'm getting emotional. I just think it's so beautiful and inspiring that you want to bring that lived experience to the forefront of the conversation. And like you said, with young people, if we start to listen to their grievances and actually listen to what they need, when we're responding and we're sharing our lived experiences, they're going to then be able to get tools. And I'm sorry, I wrote notes after what you said as well. And I think being hypersensitive as well, like I recognized it last year, but I say that I call it being an empath. Like I feel someone's emotions, I feel my emotions, I get overwhelmed, and I have to like mentally shield myself sometimes because it's really overwhelming. And I think you accepting that and saying it out loud, I've never told someone that I'm an empath, but it's in my head, I'm like, I'm so sensitive. But you being like, I am wired this way, and because I'm wired in this way, I'm fostering how to nurture that. So I want you to just know you're appreciated and we love you. And sometimes that fog hitting was your intuition that was saying share, and it's probably healing as well for you to share that. But yeah, please keep sharing your love and your healing power with young people and with everyone around you. And I hope that you're well, and I probably will reach out after this anyway. Does anyone else want to contribute something? I don't really want to cut this off because this is a really nice bonding moment. Does anyone else want to speak?
I saw an emoji from Elizabeth. Did you want to say something, Elizabeth, or was that an approval? Elizabeth Pearson, Mrs.
Hello. No, it was really an approval. Bridget, oh my gosh, well done you, well done, and everybody, because you know, I know you're feeling better now, even bringing that out. Yeah. You know, you bring it out, it's out there, and guess what? I think the saying at the moment is it's okay to not to be okay, right? Okay, so yeah, and thank you so much. But yes, it was just an emoji. If I could give you bongas, I would do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Natasha?
I think Dr. Bailey wanted to contribute as well. I saw his hand go up.
Yeah, it was just to say thank you, Bridget, but thank you, everybody. I mean, what I was talking about in theory about peer support work, I think all of you have shown in reality just how powerful it is. You know, people come to me and wanting me to diagnose, to give medication or psychology. But so much of, you know, there is so much more power in what you are all describing from your hearts. You know, there's a real bravery, there's a real hope, and not just to each other. I think also for those of us who work in mental health, who've been really struggling over the past year, but to be honest, struggling over the past 10 years with austerity and cuts to services and an undermining of community and social cohesion. You know, to me, there's real hope in what you are doing to look after yourselves and to look after each other. And you know, one of the words that Bridget said about love, to me, that is one of the most, you know, powerful, caring, therapeutic principles, both looking after ourselves, but looking after ourselves and then using that love to support others as well. And just, you know, just I'm blown away by all of your commitment and passion and experience and love. I just wanted to say thank you very much for the privilege of being able to join you today. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. I'm feeling an overwhelming sense of hope and joy, if anything. And I'm loving the common theme of self-compassion and then that turning into community compassion. And I think it was Sarah that said something about once you have that love for self and you're nurturing self, you're no longer pouring from almost kind of empty cup. You're now pouring from a cup that is filling itself up and it's sustainable. So Bridget and Sarah and basically everyone, sorry, not even just those two, just everyone. I'm loving this tone of love and sharing. And now to the woman of the hour who decided to put on this amazing event that sometimes we need it more than we knew that we needed it. So can we have Lauren virtually?
Hi everyone, thank you, Natasha. I just want to say thank you for everyone that has taken part today. I appreciate everyone's input. It was really important for me to share love today and to spread compassion, especially during Valentine's Day. I think that a lot of young people do feel disconnected right now due to, you know, the fact that we're in lockdown. We have to self-isolate, we have to social distance. We don't have the same access to social interaction. We don't have the same access to support. We don't have the same access to activities that we usually engage in. And, you know, as young people, there's a lot of pressure on us to thrive in our careers. There's a lot of pressure on us to succeed in our education. That's really hard to do that during such an uncertain time. And obviously I held a webinar a few months ago, and that was based around professional support. And I wanted to base this around peer support and community building and, you know, interpersonal communication and just helping those around you. Because I've found through my own experience that, you know, using those around me to uplift me when, you know, I don't have the power in me to do it myself has been such a huge motivation. As someone who can be quite closed off and as someone who can sometimes be stuck in my own head, it's been really helpful to have a good support system around me, as Bridget was saying. So I feel that it's important to always share with those around you what you're going through, even if you're not necessarily expressing yourself emotionally, just to make sure that you're, you know, in consistent communication with people. But I think as much as it's important to stay in communication with people, it's also very important to create boundaries. And I think that's something that I've learned a lot during this isolation period. I realized how weak my boundaries were. Sometimes it's important to take time out and to work on yourself. And when you're someone who is used to, you know, overextending and being very supportive, it's hard to kind of let people know, look, I need time out for myself and, you know, I need to take a break. Because when people are so used to always having you there, it's hard for them to accept that you need time for yourself. So I think I've had to work on that a lot during this time. And sometimes we can confuse being alone with being lonely. So I've learned to separate the two as well. And I think Sarah touched on this, but another technique that's helped me is practicing positivity and obviously practicing gratitude. I can be quite negative sometimes. Like, I will preach positivity to everyone around me, but then when I'm by myself and I'm in my own head, I tend to overwhelm myself with negative thoughts. And I think what's helped me in during this time is just being able to take time out and say, okay, this is what I'm grateful for. I'm happy about this. You know, this is what I've achieved this week, no matter how big or small. I think it does contribute a lot of positivity throughout your day and throughout your week. Those are some techniques that have helped me. Boundaries and practicing positivity. I know that Dave was speaking on his work in regards to peer support, and I think moving forward, it's very important that, you know, we create a clear platform for young people to be able to engage with other people who are experiencing similar issues. And I think what helps a lot in regards to mental health is relatability, understanding that, you know, a lot of what we're feeling isn't, you know, exclusive to us. A lot of what I've been through has been shared by other people today. So that just goes to show that, you know, there's power in sharing, and there's power in coming together as a team and supporting one another and understanding one another. So as much as it's important to seek professional help when needed, it's also important to engage with those around you and engage with those who share similar experiences. So I think, you know, moving this forward, I hope that we can continue to create spaces like this for young people and for all people, because I've been moved by a lot of things that have been shared today. And I just hope that, you know, we can continue to have spaces like this. So thank you to everyone, and happy Valentine's Day. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I feel like this was such a good idea to do it on Valentine's and to extend love to everyone in a way that is productive, sustainable, helpful, first things first. Sorry, but I've been doing this after everyone's talked. I just want to like share my notes because I'm one of those nerdy people that write notes. What you said about the difference between being lonely and alone is so powerful. I remember really going through the understanding of being in solitude and actually finding time to fall in love with myself by myself. And that's what I was trying to say in the beginning of the talk, with like, how can we turn some of these alone moments into positive practice? And that for me, like we see with things like yoga and mindfulness, you're really just being at peace with oneself. And I think solitude is that, learning to be at peace when you're alone. And then I wanted to say exactly what you said. We've all been through so many things that are similar, so we are all connected, and that's the beauty of being human. We all have similar emotions and similar experiences, not the same, but we can connect on those multi-dimensional levels, as Jackson was saying earlier. So yeah, those are my last notes. I have to plug myself a little bit here, but this was because I was here to speak about the project A Manifesting Legacy, which is what I started last year. And there's a website, so if you guys want to go on that and leave your emails and numbers in case you are interested in the future workshops, please do that. That's www.manifestingalegacy.com. We had our first cohort last autumn. It was really, really amazing, and it was across 3 weeks, and we looked at all these things like emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, the self mastery concept. We taught people how to do guided meditations that are visual, not really into the whole spiritual side, just really about how you see yourself or how you can see yourself in the future. It was all things like that. So just thought I'd plug that in there, because it's not for me, it's to help those and to build networks. I think it was powerful hearing today that it's so much more helpful when you have peer support, and peer support has come up in every single talk. So that's a common theme that really should be spoken about more. And thank goodness for things like Zoom, Teams, and social media. we've seen how powerful it has been. In the last year, there are things that are going on in Uganda, in Nigeria, in the UK. The whole so I'm starting because I get passionate. The whole movement with the Black Lives Matter. Social media was a network in itself, and I think utilizing these things for our own well-being is the best way to use it. If anyone has any last thoughts, please feel free. The floor is yours. But I just want to give Lauren a massive round of applause because,
yes,
yeah, I needed it more than I knew I needed it. So.
Thank you to Lauren. Lauren mentioned that obviously. I'll just summarize. I'll say, as TGM Radio UK, we're ready to keep this platform available to anyone who wants to do anything with mental health. So just get in touch with us, and we'll organize this sort of event. Obviously, Lauren's got a team behind her working very hard to bring this to you. But also, as in the interest of time, because we've really run over what we had expected to use as time, but we have Apostle Alex raising his or her hand. Shall we give them a chance to express their views?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Apostle?
In fact, thank you very much for the session. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Could you speak a little louder?
Yes. Thank you very much for the session. It was wonderful, and I would like to thank Lauren too. Yes, thank you. The session was very, very powerful, uplifting, encouraging. In fact, I clicked on that hand by mistake. You know, I was trying to write to somebody, but then, this technology, so I clicked by mistake. But anyway, the session was very wonderful. It has come in the season and in the time when we need it. There's a gentleman who talked about the higher consciousness, that we need to uplift ourselves up in the higher consciousness. Very, very well needed in a time like this. And thank you very much. I won't keep you for too long. Lauren, thank you for organizing something like this. Everybody, thank you for the good work that you're doing. We need it in this COVID-19 because it's the remedy. It is the remedy. Thank you very much. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Apostle. If there's no other comment, we will bring this session to a close.
I just wanted to quickly ask of something, if we still have time to do this. I was just wondering if we could quickly all go through different techniques or strategies that we can use during this lockdown and just generally. I know that a few people touched on it before, but I think it would be a great way to end, just if everyone made an input towards what they do during this time to practice positivity and to just, cope a bit better during this time. I don't know if we have time to do that, but if everyone could just give like a few tips quickly.
Quickly, we in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Shall I go first? No, go on.
Go on. Okay. Mindfulness, meditation. Sarah, next. Go.
Okay, yoga. Do yoga. Yoga.
Bridget.
Quick connecting with your breath, taking a moment wherever you are and just becoming conscious by connecting with your breath. Powerful awareness.
Dave.
Connecting with nature, physical exercise, family, music, listening to music.
Family and music. Jackson.
Yeah. Human mechanism is the most complicated instrument on the world. So we have to go inwards. Everyone, just go inwards.
Internal reflection. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Myself, it's meditation, exercise.
Awesome. Elizabeth? Okay, I don't think she's at the phone. Eddie?
Love yourself.
Oh, self-love. Perfect. Eddie?
Keep connected in whichever way, avoid isolation, and in a way over support one another, peer support in all its ways. So keep connected in whichever way, using technology or whichever way, but keep connected, avoid isolation, and a lot of sleep.
Moses.
I often use exercise and also reaching out to friends as a way of managing myself.
Great.
Apostle?
Yes. Be positive, consume positiveness, spread positiveness.
Awesome. And last but not least, Winnie, if you're at the phone.
Me time helps a lot.
Me time.
Me time and music. It helps a lot.
Me time and music. Awesome. Malcolm? I think he popped back on. We've got a Malcolm on the call. Okay, no worries. I've made a list and I'm putting it in the group chat now. Screenshot it, share it.
I was just going to say one more thing. Going for walks, and obviously, like Dave said, connecting with nature. That's really
Awesome.
helpful.
Now,
Okay, there we go. Added it.
Sorry?
I added the list in the chat so you can all screenshot it just for like a memory.
All right, thank you, Tasha.
It's all right. Everyone smile. Wait. I'm really annoying, aren't I? All right, everyone smile. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Love it. Okay, I did a screenshot. All right, love you guys. Have an amazing day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good week.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Goodbye. See you next time.
Bye. Nice to meet you all.
Bye.